So thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. This is episode number 60. I am Kyle Edwards, of course. And this episode, we're going to take a look at the NBA, which, if you saw my post on the Facebook page, Chompin at the Bit, or if you follow the show on Twitter at Chompin Podcast, you would have seen that I put up there on both platforms that I'm going to kind of do a week-long preview leading up to the 2020-21 NBA season. So, I mean, if you aren't following the show on Twitter, you might as well go ahead and do that. Because I also did put a poll up there about James Harden, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But, I mean, that's what you can kind of expect on Twitter and then Facebook. You know, I do post on there as well to kind of gauge what people are thinking. So definitely go ahead and do that. But with starting off the preview, I guess, like I said, the ESPN 100 list did come out. They do it every year. They kind of rank the top 100 players. And I mean, for the most part, it does give people a lot to talk about because there's players on there that could be seen as being ranked too high. Some are too low. Some, I guess, kind of have you scratching your head as to why they're even on the top 100 list. So, I will look at that. I mean, I probably won't look at the whole 100 list, of course. But I feel like we can at least look at the top 50 players and then kind of just breeze through most of that. And then take a deep look at the top 10, top 5, and then see who ESPN has put at number 1. I'm sure you could probably guess who it is, but we'll take a look together. And, well, yeah, just focus on those guys who are in the top 10 who shouldn't be there or could drop out, and then those who are just outside the top 10 who maybe deserve to be in the top 10 or will move into the top 10 probably by the end of the year. But before we do get into that, do want to kind of touch on some news around the league real quick, just to kind of keep you up to speed of what's going on. So, pretty much all off season, there's been a lot of talk about Giannis and what he's going to do. Whether he would re-sign with the Bucks, whether he'll just play out the year and then kind of leave it in the Bucks' hands, whether they'd let him walk, trade him, blah, blah, blah. Well, we got an answer today. Giannis signed the Supermax deal, which is 5 years, it's like $280. And of course he gets the Supermax because the 2 years that he's won MVP, put him over the threshold and all that. So Giannis is staying in Milwaukee. And you just kind of look at it and see, what does that mean for the Bucks? So basically it means that the Bucks organization is clearly committed to Giannis and making him a winner, trying to bring a championship to Milwaukee. They did make some moves this offseason. I know the biggest one was they finally let go of Eric Bledsoe. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk a lot about Eric Bledsoe on here. I'm not a big fan of his. I thought he was one of the major problems with the Bucks last year, which led to their early exit from the playoffs. So, they righted that by bringing in Drew Holiday, who I do think is a much better lead guard than Eric Bledsoe. Holiday can get to the hoop. He can finish around the rim. He's able to take smaller guards on the block. He can shoot in the mid-range, and he'll knock down open shots from the outside, out to the three-point line, which is a lot of the areas where Eric Bledsoe failed them like mightily last year. Bledsoe would try to make moves to the hoop, get careless with the ball, cause turnovers, or just throw up wild runners. From the outside, he would, take a pass, be open, brick the shot, and he was just really counterintuitive for the team. And we all knew that with last year's team, it was all about spraying the floor, opening up for Giannis. But as the playoffs went along, some of those options on the outside weren't performing well enough. So then it made it easier to key in on Giannis. Then, of course, Giannis ended up getting hurt, and Milwaukee's chances were out the window. So for the Bucks, it means the next 5 years that they'll continue to shape their team around Giannis. Plus, it means, that Giannis will probably he'll probably definitely have some say in how the team will be made up. I guess we probably don't really know a lot about how Giannis operates. We do know that he's come out and said, he's not one of those guys who is all into the whole buddy thing with opponents, which I do like about him. He does show a very competitive side when he is on the court. But I don't know behind the scenes, what kind of players he's built relationships with. So to see what kind of players he could bring to Milwaukee. As we know, Milwaukee's not exactly the biggest free agent destination, but with a talent like Giannis, you might see some players pop up there that you probably wouldn't see if Giannis wasn't there. So for the Bucks, like I said, big deal for them. They're keeping a star for a small market team. That's always a win. So then, transitioning to what does it mean for the rest of the NBA? Well, it means the whole summer. Well, next summer was going to be the summer of Giannis, if not trade deadline or whatever. So that's out the window. And, we were starting to hear about some teams that were going to be, kind of moving some money around for him. And all the talk was about Miami. Miami was kind of the top destination, but of course there was some talk about the Lakers, the Warriors, teams like that. I think even like the Raptors. But so now that's all out the window, and those teams will have to, kind of either stick with their plan that they have right now, or maybe turn their attention to some other big name free agent. What it also means for the NBA, it furthers the notion that big name players are willing to stay in smaller markets depending on the situation. Yes, each player is different. Giannis was a guy who it always seemed like he would be the type to stay in Milwaukee. He's not a guy who came from some big name college like a Duke, North Carolina, something like that. So he's used to playing with a bunch of big name players and all that. He was from the second division in Greece. Milwaukee took a chance on him. I would think maybe that factored into his decision to stay in Milwaukee, because the organization did take a chance on him. And maybe he just wants to repay it all and try to give them a ring. So yeah, like I said, definitely a win for the NBA, because if Giannis had ended up in like Golden State with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and all that, it probably would have been kind of met with the same disdain as like when Durant went there. If he went down to Miami with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, guys like that, yeah, same thing. So it's probably a sign of the whole like trio big three era of the NBA has kind of come and gone. It seems like the NBA has gone back to powerful duos in the league, and which with my week-long, I guess, series previewing the NBA, we will talk about some top duos in the league. That's for another night, so we'll just keep going. But yeah, so that's kind of the good. Giannis getting his money. And kind of to the other side of the NBA, the James Harden saga continues. And I feel like this story gets weirder every day. So Harden is with the Rockets organization. He's shown up. There's actually a picture that went around of like Harden out in the court, and he kind of looks like he's overweight. So that's going to be something to look forward to when the season starts, how well his conditioning is. I mean, he is a guy who, I mean, I don't know. He kind of seems like he gets into basketball shape as he goes on in the season. I wouldn't say Harden's the type to, go in the offseason, come back and look shredded or anything like that. He kind of has had the same body type. But yeah, that picture that they put up of him was definitely not flattering. Spoiler alert, it'll probably be the picture that I put, with this episode as the cover page for it. But yeah, so, Houston has done everything Harden has wanted. They've clearly given him the keys to the organization. They brought in Chris Paul. He didn't like Chris Paul. They let Chris Paul go. They brought in Westbrook, who he wanted. Then he didn't want Westbrook. They let Westbrook go. Now they bring in John Wall. And from most of the reports out there, they also brought in DeMarcus Cousins or Boogie Cousins. But that's, the Wall was the big get for Houston. And from all of the reports, Harden isn't happy with the John Wall move. Doesn't move the needle for him. And he still wants out. The funny thing is that Harden is acting like a player who's like in the final year of his deal, which if he was, would make more sense. He still has 2 more years on top of this year left on his deal. So he's trying to play like this power play against Houston, even though he's not really in a position of power at all. Because because Houston could literally just hold on to him for the next couple of years. Maybe once he's in his final year, then they could look to move him. He would be like 33 by then. So yeah, the whole story is weird. Now Harden is going around naming teams he wants to go to once again, like he can force Houston's hand. He's named Philly, which if Philly's going to do it, they're going to have to base their package around Ben Simmons. He's named with Brooklyn, which if you do a deal with Brooklyn, I guess Brooklyn could kind of go 2 ways with it. You could go with a package centered around Kyrie, which I have no idea why Houston would ever do that. And plus for Brooklyn kind of wants to see the whole Kyrie Kevin Durant duo, see how that works. But if Brooklyn was more inclined to, they would probably go with a second package probably built around some of those younger players who will surround KD and Kyrie here. Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, guys like that, draft picks. So Brooklyn can kind of go at it 2 different ways. And I think he also named the Heat, which if the Heat were going to do it, it'd have to be built around Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. Let's see, who's that? The young guy that they took. Precious Achua, some draft picks. So yeah, Houston, if they really did want to go about it, the teams that Harden is naming is interesting. But if I'm Houston, I would just wait for the biggest offer I can get, even if it's not one of those teams he wants to go to, because then at that point, it wouldn't be their problem. It'd be the team acquiring him's problem. But I think it was Wojnarowski from ESPN who reported that I think Houston came out and said if they were going to make a deal with Philly, it'd have to be Ben Simmons plus 3 first-round picks. Which, if you're looking at that, it's an interesting, haul for James Harden. And, of course, if that were to happen, the whole comparisons will be Harden and Embiid versus Simmons and Embiid. Who fits better with Embiid? But But yeah, so the saga continues until Houston makes a move on him. We're kind of stuck with what we are right now, which is James Harden being disgruntled in Houston, but playing for Houston as of right now. But yeah, so like I said, I mean, that's kind of the big news in the NBA right now. And with the season just a week away, I don't know if there's going to be any movement on the Harden story, but we'll have to see. But yeah, so now for the main reason of the episodes, the ESPN 100 list, which I did pull up. And like I said, I'm not going to go through all 100 because that'd be too much. And I mean, plus the players down around 100. I really wouldn't have much of a gripe with any of them down there, just quickly. Like the 100th best player they have is Joe Harris from Brooklyn. I don't feel one way or the other about that. I mean, Joe Harris is a good 3-point specialist. And for that, being ranked 100, I can get behind that. So, but I will say they did have Marc Gasol at 96. And when I first see that, I'm just thinking there's gotta be a way that there's more than 100 players better than Marc Gasol. And even Marc Gasol is an interesting player to look at because he's getting up there in age. And if you saw him play the other night with the Lakers, his athleticism is basically completely gone. But he's at the point of his career where he plays the game more mentally than physically. And mentally, he does make the right decision out there. He's a great passer. He'll still get you some rebounds. He can knock down, an open three. So, I guess with that, even being 96, I can't really be mad at it. It was just that name being on the list did kind of stand out for me. Only because, like I said, what I've seen of him lately, I mean, he looks like a guy who's on his last legs in the league anyway. But just looking at players around him, Aldridge, is better than him. Jared Allen's better than him. Ricky Rubio. So, not mad at that. But looking at 50, once again, I'm not going to go through like 50, 49. No, we'll just kind of take it in groups here. I might go like just 40 to 50. Look real quick. So like the players 40 through 50, 50s. Let me see, Domantas Sabonis out of Indiana. Not mad at that. Sabonis is a pretty good young player in the league. He's a guy who can dominate on the boards, both offensively, defensively. His offensive game is still evolving. He's a pretty good mid-range shooter. He can post up. Like I said, on the offensive boards, he gets some putbacks. He'll run on the fast break. So, top 50 player, I agree. Dinwiddie, who I just talked about, is number 49. I like Dinwiddie's game. Dinwiddie's a guy who I could have seen a little higher on the list. But, hey, he's in the top 50. Not mad at that. But just looking at other players in the 40s, I mean, they have Oladipo at 47. I think he's probably on his way down. This will be a big year for Oladipo because, he's sitting at 47. Last year he was at 33, so he's definitely trending the wrong direction. But he kind of seems like he might be hitting a crossroads in his career where I think Indiana's kind of getting tired of him, and then he himself has to prove that he can stay healthy for a full year. I believe his last couple of years have been kind of interrupted with injuries here and there. So when he is healthy, he is a talented player. He is a limited player, but he's a talented player. You know, he's not the best three-point shooter, and as we know, this is a three-point league. But as a, slasher, get to the hoop kind of guy, he's got talent there. Defensively, he plays defense. So yeah, he's a guy who after this year could either move back up, or I could see easily outside of the top 50 come next year. They have Gordon Hayward at 45. He's kind of the same boat as Oladipo, where his tenure in Boston was marred with injuries. We all know about the injury 5 minutes into his stint where he, landed awkwardly, leg, we all know about that. But even coming back from that, it seemed like it was always some type of injury that was always lingering with him. This past year he had a pretty good year. He looked good. He got into the bubble, was playing well, then rolled his ankle against Philly. It wasn't really the same after that. So, and now he's in Charlotte, so he might not get as much exposure nationally, but his role will increase with Charlotte, so it's a chance for him to, get back to being a 20, 25 point a game scorer, 6-7 rebound type of guy, 4 or 5 assists. If he can do that, then he's a guy who could maybe get back to his Utah form. He'll get every opportunity in Charlotte, like I said, because you would think Charlotte's offense will kind of run through him, while LaMelo and Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier still try to develop, and then their big men are also young, so Hayward's going to be kind of the elder statesman there. So, it's going to be an interesting year for Hayward. I mean, if you are a Hornets fan, you will definitely be tuning in. But for those of you who may not watch a lot of Hornets games, I think the Hornets are a team that you could, turn on every once in a while just to see how they look. Draymond Green at 44. Interesting place for him. Because once again, Draymond is very limited offensively, as he's not a great shooter. He can knock down the occasional three. He's not that big of a ball handler where he can get to the rim off the wing. So he's up at 44 probably mainly for his defensive versatility and his playmaking ability, because he's a good passer. So 44, yeah, I guess. Van Vliet at 40. Honestly, I think that could be a little low for him, especially coming off of last year where, he definitely took the mantle of that team and was the number one option come the playoffs. Siakam struggled mightily. I do want to see where Siakam falls on this list. I'm guessing he's in the top 50. And looking at 40 to 50, he's not there. So I want to see where he falls. Lowry might be outside of the top 50. I don't know. He may pop up somewhere. But watching that team, you could tell it was Van Vliet's team. Van Vliet was the most consistent player on that team. He just got his money this offseason. But, he's a guy who shoots the three. Even though he's not the biggest guy at the guard position, but he finds a way to get his shot off. He can, like I said, shoot the three. He can get to the rim, finish at the rim. He can, lead a break. Wouldn't say he's a great defender. I wouldn't say he's a bad defender. He's a He's probably like a league average type defender. No, that's probably disrespectful. He's an above average defender. So, but he's probably the type where they have him at 40 now with an upward trend to him. And if he plays this year like last year, then he'll probably shoot up into like the top 25 or something. Because, yeah, last year he was 88, had a great year. He's up to 40. So he's definitely trending the right way. So 40 through 50, like I said, no real big surprises there. Looking at the 30s now. Let's see. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 38. That's... See, like looking at Van Vliet at 40, I feel like I can make the argument of Van Vliet being better than Alexander. But I get it. Alexander is a big guard who's definitely talented. And he's going to get the opportunity to show that with Chris Paul not there, Gallinari not there, Steven Adams not there. So it's kind of Gilgeous-Alexander's team. So he's going to have every opportunity this year to show that he is a guy to be reckoned with going forward in the league. I mean, I don't know if he'll get to an all-star type level, but he will probably be in the conversation. So that's definitely something. And if you're in the conversation to be an all-star, let's see, all-star rosters are what? There's like 15 on the East and the West. So that's 30 players. If you're in the conversation, then I can get with being 38. Marcus Smart is number 37. That's an interesting one because Marcus Smart is the type of player where you probably either overrate him or you completely underrate him. I think 37 could be a little high. And I mean, as a Celtics fan, I love Marcus Smart. Love watching him play because when Marcus Smart's on the court, he's going to give you every ounce of energy that he has. He plays great defense. So I think this is probably what bumped him up a little bit because he plays defense on everybody, anybody, every night. He'll let's take the Lakers or something. He'll go from guarding Schroeder up the court to switching off a pick and going down low and guarding LeBron or something. I don't know if I've actually seen him on Anthony Davis, but he's very comfortable guarding guys from the 1 to the 4 spot. Some centers he will guard because he did switch out on Embiid sometimes last year in the playoffs, and he held his own because he's very strong. He stays low, and he has quick hands defensively. Offensively, his game is improving. He does seem to shoot the 3 a little better each year. He probably has better handles than you think. I mean, he's not great with handles, but he's pretty good. So he can get to the rim against certain players. And he can finish around the rim. So I mean, for him to be 37, he would have to be kind of like Gilgeous-Alexander and in that conversation for, I guess, an all-star team. And I don't know if he is, only because on the Celtics, they're going to look at Brown and Tatum first. Then Walker comes back. He gets looked at. So, I don't know. And I mean, they moved him up from 87, which would have been way too low coming into this year. 37, I think, could be a little high, but I get it. Wow, they have Russell Westbrook at 36. That seems low. I get it. Westbrook's limited as well. He's not the best shooter. But I feel like his intensity alone should have him higher than 36. He wins a lot of matchups, a lot of one-on-one matchups based off of his intensity. He's still quick with the ball. He's still explosive around the rim. Mid-range, he knows his spots. He can get to them. When he's on, he's great. When he's off, he can shoot some real bricks. But yeah, he's kind of another guy to watch this year as he's in a new situation alongside Bradley Beal. So have to see how that plays out. Eastern Conference, we're going from the West to the East. There is a difference there. Yes, it's the same sport, but it kind of seems like with the East and the West, there's a little bit of a different philosophy. And I do want to see how he does in the East against, some backcourts like, Smart and Brown, Van Vliet and Lowry. Just down the line. We'll see. But Westbrook is a guy who, he could go either way. He could show up in Washington, brick some shots, get himself into foul trouble, technical fouls, all that kind of stuff. And who knows? Washington could look to move him. Well, I don't know. But yeah, Westbrook's a guy who could go either way, up or down, come next year's list. But I think for this year, I think 36 is too low, especially since he was number 12 last year. I don't see a drop off that much. But we'll have to see who else is kind of around him that's above him. Let's see. Drew Holiday. Okay, Jaylen Brown at 32. I could argue that's low. I feel like after the leap he took in the bubble in the playoffs, I probably would have argued that he could have been inside the top 30. So being just outside the top 30 isn't like too ridiculous to me. But like I said, I could make the argument for Jaylen Brown being a top 30 player with the potential to be definitely top 25 if he continues that growth from the bubble into this shortened season. Then yeah, he's definitely a top 25 player in the league, especially for how young he still is and the leaps and bounds that he's grown in his game. Ball handling to his jump shot, 3-point proficiency, and even, he's always been kind of a finisher around the rim, but at least getting into those spots around the rim, he is definitely better at that. So he's an improving player on his way up. John Moran at 31. I'm not mad at that. Oh my, okay. We got to hold on this one. They got Kyle Lowry at 30. I honestly don't get what all the love is for Kyle Lowry. I don't. He was 39 last year. What did he really do to get bumped up to 30? I don't know. I will say in the playoffs last year, he did play well. But, he is what he is. He'll take some charges for you. He'll complain a lot. He'll knock down some threes depending on the night. But he can also have nights where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So, I don't know. I think 30 is too high. Especially looking at Van Vliet being, 40? No. Drew Holiday, 33? No, I'm sorry. Lowry, no. You're not the 30th best player in the league. But, hey, that's the 30s. Now we're jumping into 20s. Trae Young at 29. Okay, I guess. I mean, he's the guy who's supposed to be Steph Curry. He's not. He could get there, I guess. Skill set wise, there are some similarities. Both. Well, I mean, I think Steph is like a bigger player, but they both can shoot deep threes. Steph Curry is still way better at it than Trae Young, because Trae Young will throw up a lot of clunkers like air balls, complete bricks. Steph, you don't really see that. Trae tends to settle for those, whereas Steph kind of shoots them in rhythm. Trae Young is a good passer, though. And with, guys like Gallinari, was it Bogdanovich there? He could definitely throw up a higher number in assists this year, as there's just more options for him. Pick and roll game, he's gonna have Capella to play, rolling to the rim, so he can get some easy assists there. I mean, yeah. But then looking at last year, he was 28. Now he's 29 this year. I kind of see where ESPN's coming with that, because it kind of seems like whatever Trae Young's ceiling is, even though he hasn't been in the league that long, it seems like he's kind of gotten there where you don't really see where he could make this big leap in his game. And, you can say that for some players, but usually players like in the top 5, you're like, yeah, they're great, and they're just great at everything. Trae Young isn't, but it kind of seems like the things that he's not great at, he probably won't get better at anytime soon. Like defensively, he's a turnstile out there. I don't see that getting better. Shot selection at times is atrocious. I don't see that getting better, because I don't know if there's really any pressure on him to get better, whether it's from coaching or even the media down here in Atlanta. So he might be leveling off. So I get it. But moving on. Let's see. Brandon Ingram at 28. I gotta say, I like Brandon Ingram's game, especially now that he's out of LA, out from underneath LeBron and all that, and he's, down in New Orleans where they kind of let him be him. I do like Ingram's game. Like, Ingram's playing now like the player he was at Duke, and I don't know how many of you remember him at Duke, but Duke, he was the guy who had the ball in his hands when they need to get a bucket, and more times than not, he would find a way to make a play, whether it was getting to a spot in the mid-range, pulling up, setting his feet at the 3, knocking it down. So now with New Orleans, he's more of a, probably more so with no Drew Holiday and all that there. He's going to be a guy that they're going to rely on, like giving it to him on the wing, giving him space, letting him work. So Ingram at 28, I can agree with that. McCollum, Gobert. Kyrie at 25. I don't really know what to make of Kyrie anymore. He's got skills on the court, but he does frustrate you a lot with off the court stuff, and how he doesn't want to talk to the media. Then he says stuff, and the media picks up on it, and he gets mad at the media for picking up on what he said and then trying to talk about it like it's not their job. And it just seems like, that number could be, it's probably going to hinge upon his ability to play with Kevin Durant. If Durant is there with him and he kind of holds Durant back and they don't have the success that they should, Irving will definitely fall down if somehow he and Durant win a title, he will definitely move up from 25. So once again, depending on those who are in front of him, I could get on board with Kyrie at 25. Okay, they got Pascal Siakam at 24. No. After what he did in the bubble, in the playoffs, no. You can't tell me he's the 24th best player. No. I'm sorry. I would probably take Ingram over him. Remember last year they were asking... Yeah, remember in the Celtics series, they were asking, like, would you take Siakam or... Was it Tatum? Which was a complete mismatch. Or was it Brown? Which... that's an argument. Probably shouldn't be, because Siakam is supposed to be the guy in Toronto, whereas Brown isn't really supposed to be the guy in Boston. But I could easily make the argument for Jaylen Brown over Siakam. Something about Siakam's game, I'm not completely sold on. I don't know if it's like the fluidity, because a lot of his stuff is like set shot, and he moves at a slower pace, especially with the ball in his hand. But he's still really young, so this year Toronto's definitely got to see some growth in him in order to get back to the finals where they were when Kawhi was there for his year. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot thrown on Siakam's shoulders. I mean, coming out of the bubble, I'm not exactly enthused to see how he deals with that, but hey, who am I? Maybe he is the 24th best player and I'm just hating. We'll have to see. But moving along, Karl-Anthony Towns 23. Okay, Bradley Beal 22. That's fine. Jamal Murray at 21. I honestly thought after the way he performed in the bubble, he would probably have been in the top 20. But 21, just outside of it. I'm guessing for some NBA people, it's probably on a wait and see type thing. Kind of to see if he can play at that level for a full season instead of just a little stretch in the playoffs in the bubble. Which if he does, he'll definitely be on his way up. But yeah, he's definitely a guy who made himself into a household name. He did probably do the most for his reputation in the bubble. He and Donovan Mitchell, I would say, were probably on the same level. But yeah, Jamal Murray showed a lot in the playoffs. That one, he's a guy that you can rely on to get you 30, 35 points on certain nights when, Jokic doesn't have it, or, Torrey Craig can't make shots in the corner. Murray showed, he's a guy who can step his game up, make big baskets late, make tough shots around the rim, get other players involved as well. So, yeah, he's on the up and up. Paul George at 20. I mean, I guess. I mean, he's a guy who should be higher. I will say that. He has, all the talent in the world, but it just seems like the more you watch him in big situations, it seems like there's more questions about whether he can be a true number one. Is he a number one? Is he probably more fittingly the second best player? And I mean, he did struggle with that in the playoffs. We all know his bad shooting nights. He did have some decent games. I guess their last couple in the bubble, but yeah, last year was still a big disappointment. I would have thought he would have probably taken a little bit more of a hit because last year he was the 10. Going into this year, he's 20. But I thought after that performance, he would have been probably outside the top 20. I mean, could I argue Ingram over Paul George? It might be a tough argument only because, a lot of people would probably just look at Paul George's accomplishments when he was in Indy. And, he was the best player in Indy all those years. Indy didn't really do much come playoff time, but he at least has experience of being the guy. And with this being the second year in LA with the Clippers, that they're going to be hoping that he and Kawhi have better chemistry the second year now, plus the other players that they brought in. And even deal with the coaching change as Doc Rivers is now gone to Philly. So Paul George is another player to watch. See if he kind of gets back to his Indiana days or if he continues to probably slowly slump and not get past this past year in the playoffs. Zion at 19, that's probably too high, but I get it. There's a lot of hype behind him. He's really young, very athletic, and for his body type, he's probably the most athletically gifted at his size that anybody's ever seen. So, riding on that hype train, I get it. But he's a guy who definitely should have worked on his game in the offseason. I haven't seen the Pelicans play this preseason yet to see if he has, but we know those areas he needs to work in. Jump shooting, maybe creating his own shot, not solely relying on getting to the rim all the time, because 1, you can't. 2, that is a way to find yourself getting hurt, and with Zion's body makeup, biggest fear would be lower body, but staying healthy. He definitely has to do that. Like I said, he's, really young. And, there's some expectations down in New Orleans. And he's going to have to, help them get to those expectations of, with the expanded playoffs. You would think New Orleans would have to be within that play-in round. And, to see what happens from there. I mean, of course, if they don't, then it's going to be a big disappointment. But Donovan Mitchell at 18. With Jamal Murray at 21. Would you say Mitchell is slightly better than Jamal Murray? I do think after the bubble, those two are going to be compared to each other probably for the next few years going out. And that's just going to be people on both sides of that debate of Mitchell versus Murray. I think Mitchell can fall in love with the outside shot a little too much, even though he's so gifted getting to the rim. But yeah, I'm okay with Mitchell being 18. I'm okay with that. Booker at 17. We'll have to see what Chris Paul, what that does for him. He could easily move up top 15 because he's so gifted as a shooter. Ben Simmons at 16. I don't know. No, I think that's too high. I mean, I get the talent is there, but yeah, some of the guys behind him I would take before him. Mainly, yes, I know the jump shot is non-existent. And I just think that sooner or later defenses are going to figure him out. If he up fakes you on the wing, you stay down because there's a good chance he's not going to shoot one. And how many years with Ben Simmons really are we going to hear about, he's worked on his jump shot in the offseason only to find him never use it in the regular season? Like, come on, man. Just come on. It cannot be that difficult. Jason Kidd developed one, and he couldn't shoot for his life when he first came in the league. So many teams do that. Get their young players to further evolve their game. It seems like that has not happened with Simmons. Now, once again, it's Doc's first year there. Maybe he can push Ben. Like, I don't need Ben to be Steph Curry or anything, but think, for those of you who might remember, think Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom slowly worked his way to the three-point line. Like, he shot threes in college, but once he got in the NBA, he ran the wing, got to the rim a lot, slowly expanded his game from posting up within the mid-range to the deeper mid-range, and then finally out to the three. I would like to see some type of progression like that with Ben Simmons. And then if he could do that with his passing ability, his height as a point guard, his ability to get up and down the floor, then there's no reason that Simmons shouldn't be top 10 player the next couple of years. Chris Paul at 15. I'm not the biggest Chris Paul guy. I do think he is a little overrated in terms of the media, and being at 15 probably furthers my point. But I understand. With his situation in Phoenix, he's expecting to go there as a leader to help Booker, give Booker that second fiddle that he definitely needs, a guy who can get him the ball in his spots and also take over when he has to, when Booker isn't feeling it. So I'm okay with Chris Paul at 15. Like I said, I don't view him the way a lot of people do in the media. Embiid at 14, it's kind of the same book with me. I'm not completely sold on Embiid. I think there's, I don't know. I think there's too many times where Embiid can act, childish and act lazy, all that kind of stuff. I do think with Doc being there, that should help him, because Doc is not really one for that kind of nonsense, and maybe he can tap into wherever that aggression is for Joel Embiid, and have Joel Embiid spend more time in the block than kind of just drifting around the 3-point line and just jacking up threes only because they're leaving him open. So Embiid at 14, fine. Some say he's the best big man in the league. I wouldn't exactly go there yet, but I see what they're doing here. Adebayo at 13, that's probably more of, I think it's more of him being kind of the, I guess like the flavor of the month, because he had a great run in the bubble. I will say that, and he's clearly turned that into a top 15 ranking in the league. He's shown, he did show me more offensively than I thought he was capable of, but 13 seems high to me. I would have said like just outside top 15, inching towards top 15, if he can continue his strong play from the bubble into this year. So that's interesting. Butler at 12. That's solely because of that playoff run, and he was the clear leader of that team. I get it. Tatum at 11. I think once again, this is one where some people might say he's too high because he's still too young. I think based off of what I think he could be, 11 seems right, because I'm pretty sure I could probably guess the names in the top 10 And I'm not mad at the fact that Tatum is kind of the leader of that next wave of guys who are looking to, jump up in the top 10 as some players probably wind down their careers and stuff like that. So, not mad at that, especially early in the year with no Kemba Walker there. Tatum's going to be thrust into being the number one guy even more in the beginning of the year. And, I mean, he's definitely shown a lot of growth in his game from coming into the league as a guy who many thought wouldn't play defense or wouldn't be good at defense. Showed from day one he was a capable defender and actually pretty much above average defender, to his playmaking ability with his ball handling skills. His step back three is right up there. Well, probably right up there as one of the best in the league. There was that story that he apparently is growing. It went from 6'8" last year to 6'10". So that could be a scary thing. But yeah, at 11, I could see that. Now, we are into the top 10. And let me see here. Okay. Got Jokic at 10. I'm guessing this will probably be the one that you could probably make the most argument for, but I'm a big Jokic fan. I think he is the best big man in the league. When you take his passing ability, his three-point shot, and the fact that he doesn't just sit out there and just shoot him just to shoot him. He tends to take ones that are needed and big shots for Denver and more likely knocks them down. He's, once again, not the most athletic guy, but he does get it done defensively against certain bigs. Your shorter, quicker bigs will probably give him trouble, but I mean, how often does he face that? So I'm okay with Jokic at 10. Harden at 9. I've said on here several times I'm not a Harden fan. So I think Harden is probably the guy who should fall out of the top 10 come next year. I would not be mad at that one bit. Because, I talked about it on here. I think Harden offensively stunts the growth of a lot of players. He took away from Westbrook. I feel like he's taken away from Eric Gordon as well. And just some other guys in that team. And I just don't get it. I think if he had stuck on the Oklahoma City path, where he was kind of a do-it-all type player with the ball, fine. But ISO Harden, no, not a fan. Sorry. And you can see it. He's been on teams that have won a lot of regular season games and then come to playoffs, do nothing, and flame out early. And I think a lot of that has to do with him. And then now the way that he's treating the whole Houston situation makes me like him even less, because I think it's a joke what he's doing in Houston right now. But he is a gifted scorer. I will give him that. I do think his ability to, throw himself into people and get unnecessary whistles does help his numbers a lot. Because think of it, if you get to the free throw line, even if you, like what he does a lot, where he bricks a three, but throws himself down because he thinks somebody got hit on the arm, like on his follow through or something, and he always gets that whistle. Well, he scores points without really lowering his field goal percentage. So, yeah, I think he does get the benefit for kind of the era of basketball that we're in, where certain players get ridiculous foul calls all the time and take full advantage of it. And Harden is one of those, so I can't really knock him for that, but it's just a tough watch for me. Yeah. So Harden at 9 is my guess is the player who will probably fall out of the top 10. Steph Curry at 8. Okay. He's coming off that injury to his hand. But the guy that I've seen so far in the preseason, he looks like a guy who could be back into the top 5 in no time. and would not be surprised if he wasn't in the MVP conversation this year. I mean, he'll probably be a shoo-in for comeback player of the year, depending on some other stuff that goes on. But yeah, he looks like he's back to his old self. And that could be a scary thing for the rest of the league. But 8, I'm okay with that. Lillard at 7, I got no argument with that. I mean, Lillard gets that reputation strictly from late game situations. His ability to take pressure shots, make pressure shots, whether he's inside the arc, way beyond the arc. He has no fear, and I have no problem with Lillard being at number 7. Durant at 6. I mean, you can't really say much because he's coming off that injury. I'm interested to see as the year goes on, will there be any effects of that Achilles injury to his athleticism getting to the rim? Will he have trouble getting around certain players that, before the injury, it was an easy, jab step, get around them. Maybe that jab step he isn't as quick on, and, he kind of becomes just a deep mid-range 3-point shooter who, maybe he gets to the rim a few times if, somebody overcommits to him. Or maybe he plays more in the block or like the high post area and just makes a living out there because, I mean, if he did do that, trust me, he would be probably one of the best in the league in the low post. So I do want to see what kind of situations Steve Nash puts him in. So at 6, I'm okay with that. Because I think before the injury, he was probably number 2 or 3. So I'm okay. Top 5, Kawhi. I guess, yeah. Yeah, that seems right for him. He's probably best two-way player in the league. Probably more defensively. I think offensively he still does have limitations. I don't think he's the best passer when he has the ball looking to make plays. Shot selection can be a little iffy sometimes for me. He is a willing 3-point shooter. I'll give him that. He's not exactly the best 3-point shooter. And I do think he's disciplined in his 3-point shot selection. He'll usually just take a couple a game. Which I get because, like I said, he's not the best at it. But I think if he did ever become a reasonable 3-point shooter, at least to the point where you take him seriously out there, I just see him moving up in the ranking. But 5, I'm okay with that right now. Luka at 4. I love Luka's game. But I think even I could say Luka at 4 might be slightly high off the bat. But it could be because they knocked Durant out of the top 5. They wanted to put somebody up there. And, Luka's growth and what he showed in the bubble and all that. I'm not mad at Luka being number 4. Luka's a guy who should be probably the best player in the league at some point, some year. So going into this year at number 4, I'm okay with that. I get why. Giannis at 3. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I know he was seen as probably the best player in the league maybe going into last year, coming off the MVP season. But I mean, his limitations are still there. He offensively still kind of a one-trick pony. Get to the rim, he'll run over some guys. He can finish at the rim better than probably anybody with his length and all that. Mid-range, he's actually pretty decent in the mid-range. He will shoot mid-range shots. He's comfortable doing that. 3-pointers is still an issue. But at least outside of Ben Simmons, where he supposedly works on it and you don't see it, you can tell Giannis works on it because each year he seems to get more and more comfortable from the three. And if he ever gets to the point where, he's a knockdown shooter at the three and you can't just completely leave him open out there, then he becomes probably the most dangerous player that we will see the next couple of years. So 3, I understand. 2, Anthony Davis, he definitely helped himself with the Lakers playoff run. He showed, he's always been dominant defensively, but in the playoff setting, finals and all that, he was really dominant defensively. Offensively, he made big baskets for that Laker team. When LeBron would throw him the ball down in the post, they need to get a basket. After Miami made a run or something, they always went to Davis in the post or out in the wing. And since he grew up as a point guard before his growth spurt, you definitely see those point guard skills in him when he's out in the wing. But you see his big man ability down low, and he's probably the most unstoppable guy down in the paint. Question with him is always durability. He seems to come up with little nicks and bumps, bruises, kind of stuff here and there. And I think that's probably what's keeping him from being number 1 on this list is durability. So number 1's obviously LeBron. He's coming off Finals MVP and all that. Interesting to see this year with him being 37. I think he turns 37 in December, and interested to see what he looks like this year. As there's going to be travel involved, and that could take a toll on an older body. And he's still a guy who relies a lot on strength, overpowering guys, getting to the rim. Yeah, he's still a good passer, but you just figure at some point, age will knock him down. And, not saying like an injury-plagued year, but maybe a year where he loses a step and he isn't able to get around players as easily as he has been. And maybe you start seeing some limitations more on his game where, jump shooting ability he has gotten better with throughout his career. He's still not a big threat from the outside. So, and, at this point, I don't see him getting any better at that because, like I said, you're 37 at this point. What he was last year, is probably what he will be going forward, with each year taking a little bit away from his game. So I'm not mad with him being number 1. But it's probably going to be short-lived, like I said, with the whole age and everything. But yeah, for the most part, top 10, I don't really have any problem with. How they slotted him 1 through 10 probably means less to me than actual players in the top 10. As I said, Harden's the guy for me who will probably fall out of the top 10. And I think Tatum's a guy who could easily jump up in the top 10 based off of his continued ascension in the league. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Overall, I don't really have any big gripes with the 100 list. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, week long, we're gonna talk a lot of NBA this week, and this is kind of my kickoff to it. So, definitely tune in. The next episode, we'll go over, I believe it was Bleacher Report who released the top duos in the NBA. I do want to take a look at that because, like I said, we are in the era of duos, no longer big threes. That has ended. So I do want to see who they think is the top duo. I'm assuming, like how ESPN has LeBron and Anthony Davis, 1 and 2. I'm assuming that's probably your top duo, but we'll have to see. Some duos did change. Want to see how they kind of rank those, and it'll be a good list to look at for tomorrow's episode. But like I said, NBA week for me, so be looking at that. Also look at, Eastern, Western Conference outlook. I think somebody did their rankings for East and the West. Definitely look at that, see what teams they're underselling and what teams they're overselling. Plus maybe a surprise playoff team or maybe a surprise dropout. We'll have to see. Also look at more player-focused stuff, like some players to watch for who could make that leap. Kind of your under-the-radar type guys. And surprise teams as well that you might not be thinking about, who may do better than you think. That's will kind of be a little bit play off of the Eastern and Western Conference outlook stuff, but definitely look at that. And then come time next week when the season starts, I'll give you the MVP players to watch. Because I've said this to people, I'm probably not on here, but going into each year, I can usually figure out who like the top 3 players will be in the MVP race. The MVP race is usually not that hard to predict. But, like I said, save that for later on in the week. But, yeah, so thank you for tuning in. I know this episode was probably a little longer. I think it's actually been the longest episode I've done on here. Like I said, there's a lot to go through. So, not saying that they're all going to be this long. They probably won't. But, thanks for tuning in, sticking through it the whole way with me. If you're new, as I mentioned early on before, I do have a Facebook page as well as a Twitter page at Chompin Podcast. Definitely follow me there. Have a poll up there, which ties into the James Harden question. So if you go to the Twitter page, you can definitely vote on that poll. Simple question: where does James Harden finish the year? And I put some choices on there, whether it's Houston, Philly, Brooklyn, or other. So head over to the Twitter page and definitely vote on that. I may bring it up by the end of this week preview. But yeah, Facebook page, like I said, Chomping at the Bit on Facebook. You could, join the page there. Wherever you are listening to the show, as I am on all major podcasting platforms, definitely hit that subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. And yeah, so thank you for tuning in once again. Be safe out there. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next episode. All right.